John 1 says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And a question that a lot of people have when they get to this is, what does the Bible mean by the Word? And I think that's because we might not understand what the Old Testament says about the Word. Now here's some verses you can go check out. But it's the Word who brought the world into being, but the Word is also God's powerful self-expression in everything. So in other words, I believe when John uses the term the Word, it's talking about the entirety of God expressed. I think this is why John 1:18 says, no one has seen God at any time, the only begotten God who is in the bosom of the Father. He has explained him. And the word for explain there, I believe, is where we get the word exegesis from. So it's the Word who perfectly explains the Father to us or shows us the Father. Do you remember Philip's sad question to Jesus? When Philip says, Lord, show us the Father, and it is enough for us. And Jesus' response, have I been with you all so long, and have you not come to know me, Philip? He who has seen me has seen the Father. How can you say, show us the Father? Do you not believe that I am in the Father, and the Father is in me? And so I believe Philip missed on what it meant that Jesus is the Word. And I do believe John also used it because the term is very familiar to the Greeks. And the Bible makes it very clear who the Word is. John 1:14, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, glory as of the only begotten from the Father, full of grace and truth. Who can that be? None other than Jesus. And what is so sweet, the word dwelt there has the idea of pitching a tent. So I think you could perhaps translate this verse as, and the Word became flesh and tabernacled among us. And this is the same verse in Revelation when it talks about God dwelling with us. I believe that he will tabernacle with us. And if you don't know what the tabernacle is, I highly recommend you look into it in the Old Testament. Perhaps I should make a video on that too. And notice the verse starts with in the beginning, which I believe obviously points back to Genesis. And the Greek is just two words, in arche. And arche, which is the word for beginning, is not just time, but it's also origin. So I believe John is showing us here that the origin of everything is from the Word. And we definitely see that in verse 3. And notice it says, and the Word was with God. And the word there with comes from the Greek word pros. So more literally, that you could translate it as, and the Word was toward God. So the sense is not that the Word was with God in proximity, but that he was with God in a close, intimate relationship. And so we have the Word and God having this sweet fellowship before anything was ever created. And I think it's sad sometimes. I hope I'm not making too light of it, but I kind of laugh when people have this they talk like God is like this old, lonely man and he just wants a friend. And so he made humans so he could have some buddies. And that is just so far from the truth of who we have in Scripture. That God was perfectly joyful, perfectly satisfied, and lacked nothing before he created the world. But he created for his glory, and I also believe he created the world because he is so good and so gracious and so full of joy, he couldn't help but share it. That he's so good, he just wanted to overflow his love to people, even people who deserve the opposite of that. John 1:16 says, for of his fullness we have all received, and grace upon grace. And I believe it's from his fullness that he created the world. And the Word was God. Make no mistake, Jesus is God. And oh man, does John make it so clear that Jesus is divine. And if you can read John's gospel and come to the conclusion that John wasn't showing that Jesus is God, I don't believe you. And then he was in the beginning with God. And some of your versions might say this one. It comes from the word hutos. So it has the idea of saying he, like that one. He was in the beginning with God. And I believe John is just emphasizing what he just said. As Hebrews 1:1 says, God, having spoken long ago to the fathers and the prophets in many portions and in many ways, in these last days spoke to us in his Son. And he is the Word speaking to us through John's Gospel.